Hi everyone, this is William from the Headphone Experience, and I'm here tonight with a comparison, sort of a shootout, but not really, but a comparison of the Hifiman Deva Pro and the Sundara. And the reason I'm doing this is because a couple weeks ago, I did my full review of the Deva Pro. And I did compare it a little bit to the Sundara, but people just keep asking me which do I like best. Apparently, because they're both from the same company, similar price, a lot of people are having a hard time deciding which one they want. Obviously, the Deva Pro has the Bluetooth, which the Sundara doesn't. The Sundara Pro has USB capability where you can plug it directly into a USB cable, and then it uses its own built-in DAC and headphone amp and battery to power itself. And obviously the Sundara can't do any of that, but the Sundara is known for being a really good sounding headphone. So I'm going to set aside the Bluetooth and the USB capability and all that in tonight's video. I discussed all that in my full review of the Deva Pro, and I don't think I really need to go over that again. What tonight's video is a comparison of the two, using them wired to a a good desktop amp, and which sounds the best that way, because this is an extremely versatile headphone. You can use it in a lot of different ways, but a lot of people are wanting to know, how good does this sound wired up to a good desktop amp? And is it as good? Is it better? I've heard some people say that they believe it's better, and that's fine. Once I've said this many times, headphones are subjective, and there is no best or worse. It depends what a person wants. So tonight I'm going to dive in a little deeper. Like I said, I did compare the two in my last video, the full review of the Deva, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper and give as thorough of comparison as I can between the Deva and the Sundara, using them both wired up to a good headphone amp. And I did want to mention that my Sundara is, I believe, the V1 edition. I've had these since July of 2018, so I think it has been updated. I also wanted to point out that I had tried these with other ear pads, Kennerton ear pads, and I really like it with the Kennerton ear pads. In fact, the Kennerton ECL02 ear pads give it a little bit more bass. They make it more comfortable. They make it look better in my opinion, but I didn't want to use an $80 pair of ear pads on this headphone for the comparison. I didn't think it'd be fair, so I went back to the stock original ear pads that came with the Sundara for the comparison. So I also wanted to let you know what equipment I used. I mean, I've run both of these off of several different amps, several DACs, but primarily for my comparison, I was using my Cambridge Audio 540C CD player as a transport, and mostly using the topping D70S MQA version DAC. And for amps, I was mostly using the Burson Conductor 3 reference, and the both with the built-in DAC and using the external topping DAC, and the Audio GD Master 9, both using the Audio GD R8 DAC and the topping D70S. So that's primarily the equipment. So I wanted to see what both of these headphones sounded like with, a pretty decent amp. These are both, I mean, not ultra high-end, but they're both pretty high-end amps, and really on a higher level than a $350 headphone. So I wanted to see how well they scale using a better amp, because obviously either of these headphones could be used with much lower priced amps and do just fine. But anyway, so getting into my comparison, I wanted to start out with tone balance. And tone balance, the Sundara I would consider just about dead neutral. The Deva I would consider to be neutral with a little bit of a bump in the mid bass, probably about a 3 decibel bump. And I did want to mention, and I mentioned this in my full review of the Deva, that in my opinion, using the using either Bluetooth or the USB source and using the built-in DAC headphone amp and battery, I think that the Deva actually sounds a little bit warmer and a little bit bassier than it does using an external amp. So I just wanted to let that be known because they do sound different. It does sound a little bit different using an external amp than it does using its own built-in amp and DAC and all that. So anyway, but plugged into an amp, I would say the Deva has, like I said, a little bit of a bump in the bass, but not a lot. Bass extension, I would give a slight advantage to the Deva. It sounds to me just to go slightly lower than the Sundara does. Treble extension, I'm going to call it a draw. And I probably mentioned this before, because of my age, I doubt I can hear anything over 15,000 hertz. And both of these seem to go as high as I can hear without any roll off. No noticeable roll off in either one in the treble. Sub bass. I'm going to once again give a slight advantage to the Deva. It just has a little bit more weight to the sub bass than the Sundara does. It's just it's a little more present. You notice the sub bass a little bit more with the Deva. The mid bass, same thing. The Deva has just a little bit more weight to the bass, but the Sundara, in my opinion, is the bass is a little bit more dynamic. It has a little bit more punch or a little bit more slam than the Deva does. So I hope this isn't confusing, but the Deva just has a little bit more weight to the bass. There's a little bit more mid bass there, but it's a little bit softer. Where the Sundara, it's a little less bass, but you hear you know, the strike like of a drum, like of a foot drum. You know, you just hear it. It just has a little bit more impact to it. Getting into the mids, I would say, in my opinion, the mids are slightly drier and slightly thinner on the Deva, and a little bit warmer and a little bit more liquid on the Sundara. Not a huge difference. They're both pretty similar, but I do hear a little bit of a difference in the mids on the two. The treble is very similar, but I'm going to give a slight edge to the Sundara. It just has a little bit more energy in the treble and a little bit more sparkle to it. Some people think the Sundara is a little bit on the bright side. I personally think Sundara has almost perfect treble. But you know, some people are more sensitive to treble, think it's just a little bit bright, so they might actually prefer the Deva over the Sundara, where the treble is just a little bit more laid back. Imaging, I would say the Sundara has more pinpoint imaging. I listened to several different songs last night when I was trying to make this decision, and it just seems without a doubt to me that the imaging on the Sundara, I can pinpoint each instrument to a smaller space, where with the Deva, the sounds are just a little bit more vague and a little bit more spread out. And then the Deva, or no, I'm sorry, the Sundara seems to have a little bit better separation between the instruments. And I think that's because of the imaging being more pinpoint. Because the Sundara, like I said, I can pinpoint to small spots where each instrument's coming from. So I think because of that, there's less overlap between the instruments, which gives creates a sense of more separation between the instruments for me. Once again, there's no huge differences between these two headphones, but so many people have asked me which I like best, just for general listening, not factoring in the Bluetooth or USB or anything, just plugged into an amp. And I just, so I dug in as deep as I could, and that's what I'm trying to let you know. That way when people ask, I'm going to refer them back to this video and instead of trying to explain it over and over. Soundstage, I'll start with the width. They're both good, but I think the Sundara has a little bit more width to the Soundstage. I'm hearing instruments just a little bit further out, and voices are just a little bit more centered on the Deva and a little bit wider on the Sundara. The height seems to be about the same. Both I hear sounds up pretty high and pretty low. And then depth, I'm going to give the Sundara a slight edge over the Deva. I think there's a little bit more depth in front and in back with the Sundara, a little bit more layering. Pretty close, but just a little bit more. I do hear a little bit more of a holographic soundstage with the Sundara. As far as detail and resolution, they are both really good. I've mentioned before that the Sundara, in my opinion, has detail as good as headphones up in the $2,000-$3,000 range. The Sundara has outstanding detail for headphones in its price range. The Deva is almost as good, but slightly behind. And I think that the reason that the Sundara seems to be a little bit more detailed is because it's a little bit more dynamic, and because there's a little bit more separation between the instruments. So it's giving me the impression that it just has a little bit more detail. I'm not sure that it really does, but I just feel that it does. When I listen to it, I just feel, because of being able to separate the instruments a little bit further, and it might just be that a little bit of extra punch, the dynamics. It might just be that, that each instrument hits a little bit harder. I think that's also creating the illusion of being a little more detailed. As far as dynamics, I kind of mentioned this a minute ago. The Sundara definitely sounds more dynamic to me, a little sharper edges on the notes, a little bit harder hitting. Everything from the mid bass to up into like snare drums just have a little more snap and impact to them, and even getting up into the mid-range, upper mids, like piano notes, just seem to, once again, just have a little more impact to them. They just hit a little bit harder. Male vocals, to me, on the Sundara, male vocals just sound like they have a little bit more weight and a little bit more authority. On the Deva, just slightly thinner and slightly drier. Female vocals, on the Sundara, they sound just a little bit warmer and a little bit richer to me. Once again, the Deva just slightly drier, slightly a little bit thinner, once again. Pianos. And I find pianos a really good way to judge headphones, piano music. Just, a real, not electric, but just a real piano with strings. Just the clarity of the notes and the realism. And once again, I'm giving a slight edge to the Sundara. It just, both are very good, but the Sundara, the piano notes just sound a little bit more natural, a little bit more real to me. Fatigue. And by fatigue, I'm talking about listening fatigue, not comfort fatigue. Listening fatigue, I would say both are pretty low in the fatigue category. I mean low as far as they're not fatiguing. The Deva isn't fatiguing because it's a little bit softer, a little less dynamic, and which dynamic headphones can come across as fatiguing, but that was the Deva. The Sundara, even though it's a little more dynamic, doesn't really sound fatiguing to me because it's got a slightly warmer, slightly more liquid mid-range. So both of them, the fatigue level is pretty low. Neither one bothers me. I can listen to both of them for a couple hours with no problems. Forgiveness, and by forgiveness I mean, can you listen to a less than perfect recording with this headphone without it pointing out every flaw? And some headphones are just so analytical that you reach the point you can only listen to perfect recordings with them. You don't want to listen to anything that has flaws, has background hiss, things like that, or or if the recording's a little oversaturated where it distorts a little bit. Some headphones will really point that out. And even though both of these are very detailed, neither one of them really seems to really, make the flaws jump out at me. So I would say they're both kind of average as far as that's concerned. Analytical versus musicality. What I mean by that is, does the headphone lean one way or the other? Does it lean towards being analytical to the point that, it loses a little bit of its musicality, or does it lean the other way where, it just has more of a musical sound? And I would say they're both kind of right in the middle, but I would say the Deva leans a little bit more towards the analytical. It's a little bit cooler, drier sound, and the Sundara, I would say, leans a little bit towards musicality because of a slightly more liquid, slightly warmer, richer mid-range. My next category is scale, and what I mean by that is, how does the headphone scale as far as plugging it into a better amp? Some headphones, the better the amp, the better the headphone sounds. Other headphones, once you reach a certain point, it doesn't really make a difference. And in my opinion, the Sundara scales a little better than the Deva. The Deva, once I reach, like maybe a $200 or $300 amp, it doesn't really seem to make a lot of difference. Beyond that, it doesn't really improve the headphone much beyond that point. Where the Sundara, jumping up to, a $1,500, $2,000 amp, it does just keep getting better. So I think that the Sundara benefits from a high-end amp more than the Deva does. Versatility, I have to give, that's a huge win for the Deva. The Sundara, all you can do is plug it into an amp and listen to it. The Deva, you have an option of Bluetooth, you have an option of plugging it into the USB port of your computer or tablet or whatever, your phone, listening to it that way. You have an option of using a wired with a cable that goes to both ear cups, or a single cable that only goes to the left ear cup. You have a lot of choices, so versatility is a clear win for the Deva. Weight. The Sundara the Deva weighs in slightly less. According to my scale, the Deva weighs 369 grams and the Sundara weighs 382. Although if you put the Bluetooth unit with the amp and DAC onto the Deva, that adds 25 grams, so now you're slightly heavier than the Sundara. Both, in my opinion, are very lightweight headphones. Anything under 400 grams for a full-size over-the-ear headphone, I consider to be very light. Excuse me for a second. Sorry, I heat with wood, and it gets real dry in my house, and if I sit here and talk for 19 minutes, my throat dries up. But anyway, comfort. Both headphones, in my opinion, are very comfortable. They're both light. Neither one has excessive clamping force. They do have different styles of headbands. And I find both of them pretty much equal in comfort. They're pretty much equal in adjustability. The Sundara does have a slightly higher clamping force. Not enough to bother me though. The Sundara does feel a little bit more secure on my head. If I move around, if I tip my head and stuff, I don't feel it moving at all. The Deva, because it does have a lighter clamping force, I don't feel quite as safe. I mean, I can move around and stuff. I don't have to worry about it falling off if I tip over, but it does just feel a little bit looser. But comfort-wise, they're both very light. They both have similar ear pads. And comfort is not a problem with either one. I don't think anyone's going to have a complaint about the comfort level of either of these headphones. Style. I've got to say that I personally prefer the looks of the Sundara. The Deva, I'm not crazy about the silver color. I do like the black of the Sundara, and I do like the way the headband looks better on the Sundara. So, most people, I don't think the looks are all that important, but I do personally prefer the looks of the Sundara over the Deva. Price. Actually, that one goes to the Deva. Not only does it include the Bluetooth, the USB, all that stuff, but it's actually $20 cheaper. The Deva Pro goes for $329 right now, and the Sundara goes for $350, $349, something like that. So they're real close in price, but you're actually getting more features, more versatility with the Deva at a slightly lower price. So that one does go to the Deva. So what does it come down to? What's my decision? The Deva, if you want a headphone that you can use Bluetooth, if you can use a USB cable, it has the little unit, that plugs into this, it supplies the DAC and all that. I actually think it sounds better using that than using even a high-end amp. This has so many ways you can use it. Overall, I would say this is the winner of the two. It's the cheapest. So, my overall winner, as far as bang for the buck, what you're getting for the price, I have to give it to the Deva. But if I was just going to use it as a wired headphone, especially if I owned a higher end amp, and I was going to use this as just wired, and wasn't worried about USB or Bluetooth or any of that stuff, I would personally pick the Sundara. If I'm sitting here at home and I need a headphone to listen to, and I'm just going to sit here and listen to the music plugged into an amp, I would pick this one. I do like the Deva as far as having a little more bass, and if bass is your thing, then you're probably not going to agree with me. You're probably going to pick the Deva. But the slightly warmer, more liquid mid-range of the Sundara, the slight higher energy in the treble, and the bigger Soundstage, the Sundara just sounds more open. And I guess I skipped that category, but it goes along with Soundstage. The Sundara has a slightly wider, slightly deeper soundstage and just sounds a lot more open to me, where the Deva just, everything just seems a little bit in closer, not claustrophobic, but just a little more, I guess intimate would be a word that a lot of reviewers use. Just, everything's on a smaller scale, where the Sundara is just a little bit more space, a little more open, and a little more separation. So for that reason, if I was just gonna sit at home and plug this into an amp, I would almost definitely pick the Sundara over the Deva. So I hope that answers the questions that a lot of people have. You know, which one of these two headphones should they buy? And I'm not saying that one is necessarily better than the other. I'm just saying that the Sundara or the Deva can do a lot of things the Sundara can't do. But as far as, you know, just plugging the thing into a higher end amp and just, you know, the overall sound quality, I actually give the edge to the Sundara, and that would be my choice. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Once again, this is William from the Headphone Experience. If this video has helped you, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and we are up to about 14,300 members over at the Headphone Experience on Facebook. I'm giving you my personal invitation to join us. We are a private group. You gotta ask to join, but sure you'll be approved, and like to see you all over there. And once again, thanks for watching my video.